Alright, in this video we're going to look at how to create an app launcher that has multiple menus to your app launcher, and let's just go ahead and have a look and see what we're going to be creating in this two-part series. So I have a little switch down here at the bottom. If I click on open or to open it, we have all of these various pieces that pop open, and then we can tap on any of these inside of here in any order that we want, and we can have other icons popping up, and then whichever one we go, we can launch a particular app. In this case, I'm launching Google+. Now, I don't have all of these set to touch, but you can have them broken up into your sections. Here, for example, I'm pressing the Google to open up my Google stuff. If I had a whole bunch of Google things, I got my cache piece up here. And notice that I'm tapping on the X, and that's actually doing something as well. And at any given point in time in this entire animation stuff that we're doing, if I close it out, it's going to close everything out. And then if I open it back up, it's back to its original look, and that's what I call open. So you may have noticed this word was changing down here. Let's pay attention to that. That's one thing we're going to focus on in the first part of this tutorial. The second part to this is going to be getting even more stuff to interact and using this text global variable. So notice I have everything closed, and now when I tap this, that text global that we're going to be talking about, it becomes open. Depending on which one I tap, this one I've called money, this one I've called pick, this one I've called social, and I'm going to keep on tapping them. Here's Google, and here is games. Now, at any given point in time, I can navigate through these in any order that I want. And then also I can close out of one like this, and notice it changes the word to back. That's going to be important. All of this is done using one text global variable. And then what else is cool about it is, regardless of what you have open at any given point in time, you can close the whole thing down. Should you decide to open it back up, everything's opening back up to its default setup. So again, two parts to this. I like this new idea that I'm doing of breaking things up. That way I'm not making hour-long videos. And plus, I think it gives you, the viewer, enough time to soak each piece in before I move on to the second part. So with all that said, let's go into KLWP and let's get to work on this. So inside of KLWP, we're going to start with a blank preset, and let's go ahead and go over to globals, and let's create one text global variable. I'm going to call it go. And I'm just going to go in here and type in some random stuff because I don't really care about that right now, but at least the text global has some value to it, which I don't really care about. All right, now what we're going to go ahead and do is create one of these icons. I want to go over some pieces here about how to get drop shadows. I haven't mentioned that, I don't think, in any tutorial I've done for KLWP. So let's go ahead and work on an icon for this top left-hand corner. I'm going to use an overlap group, and I'm going to call this one money. You can call it whatever you want. Whatever type of group of apps you want to have inside of it, go ahead and give it a name. You don't have to give it a name if you don't want to, but I'm going to call it money. Inside of this overlap group, I'm going to add a blank shape, and I'm going to call it blank because this is going to help us keep things centered as we start creating more things in the future. And for my blank shape, I'm going to make it a circle, and I'm going to give it a relatively large size. It's going to have no color to it eventually, so around 300. I'm going to go back to this overlap group. I'm going to position it in the top left. Then I'm going to back out of here. So in this overlap group, let's create another overlap group, but we're going to leave the blank shape inside of the original money. So I'm creating another overlap group inside of this overlap group. I'm going to call this icon. And inside of this icon overlap group, again, we're sitting inside of the money overlap group, and now we have this icon. All right, so now we're going to add another shape. I'm going to do a circle, but I'm going to make this circle a little bit smaller, maybe like 200. Paint, we'll set it to black. And then I'm going to also stay inside of this icon overlap group, and I'm going to add an icon font to it. Going to bump that size up. And if it doesn't look centered, we can adjust the position of it. Maybe a little bit of left padding, maybe not that much. All right. Now, so we have the icon. We have a black circle with the money, the cash symbol on top of it. Then we have this big circle in the background, which is not going to get used that much in part one. But what I do want to show to you is the following. I'm going to back out to my root, coming over to background, and I'm going to set it to a slightly lighter gray color. All right, back to my items. Now, this money overlap group, if I go to its layer and I scroll down a little bit and I look at FX, we can get some shadows in here. But what I have realized, and it dawned on me like a few weeks ago as I was starting to work on this particular tutorial, I noticed sometimes I could get a drop shadow. So notice this other overlap group that I have sitting inside of money icon. If I go to its layer and I go down to the FX, we actually can get a drop shadow from this one. Okay, so that drop shadow, I'm gonna set it to black. I'm gonna cut the blur on up to about 100. You don't have to do this, but notice as we do that, it is moving it. And that's where this bigger circle is gonna come help us in part two. The direction I'll leave at 0, the distance I'll set it to 1. So 100, 0, 1. Let's back out of here. Let's come to our blank shape and let's set its paint to completely transparent. And then also back for that drop shadow, we're not going to be able to see it that much unless maybe I change that drop shadow's color. Should have changed this earlier to, let's do a white. Let's save that. Let's see what it looks like. So there is our icon. Now you can position this wherever you want. Maybe I could, adjust this dollar symbol a little bit. It's not perfectly centered, but there's our general setup of the icon. Now, before we start creating other icons, let's go ahead and apply some animations to this, and then we can start copying and pasting this icon and just maybe changing the actual font icon itself. So back inside of KLWP, let's go over to touch. And if we touch, but make sure you are in the money overlap group. If we go over to touch, go to plus, and let's toggle that global switch. And what we want to do here is we just want to set it to money. We don't have to do any if-then stuff when we touch this overlap group. So what that's going to do is it's going to change the that text global. If we touch it, it's going to change it to money. Now, let's go ahead and for teaching purposes, let's go ahead and add a text item back in our root. This text item, I'm going to set it to GVGO. And of course, we're going to see that nonsense I typed earlier. And I'm going to position this in the bottom right-hand corner, just for teaching purposes. Bump the size up. And now let's go ahead and work on our on-off switch as well. Just a real quick on-off switch. For the sake of this video, I'm just going to create literally a square down here at the bottom to be my on-off button. I'm not really concerned about sliding that thing left or right now. If you are, I can maybe just leave a comment below. I'll discuss that in part two. That's not really my goal for this video here. So I'm just going to create a real quick on-off button. All right, so there is and notice what I called it. I called it open close. We're going to use some of those same words that you saw back at the beginning of the tutorial. I'm going to position this at the bottom of the screen. And then for this open close shape, I'm going to go over to its touch. And we're going to toggle that global switch. And we do want to apply a code here. If GVGO is not equal to close, we want to set it equal to close. Otherwise, we want to set it to open. That is important. You don't want to do not equal to open, set it equal to open, and then otherwise set it equal to close. Basically, what this is going to do, regardless of whatever GVGO is, if GVGO is not equal to close, it's going to set it equal to close. Otherwise, so if it's equal to anything else, it's going to set it equal to open. Checking that. And now let's go ahead and see what's going to happen if we start touching this. So notice I touched it and it set it to close. And notice if I keep touching it, it's going back and forth between open and close. That's what that if-then statement is doing. If GVGO is not equal to close, which it's not right now, it's going to set it equal to close. And now if I click it again, otherwise it's going to set it back to open. All right, so this open piece is going to be helpful when we start doing stuff up here. Now remember, we have a touch applied to this cash or this money overlap group as well. So when I touch this, notice it changed it to money. Now, let's start applying some animations to our money overlap group. So I'm going to go to money, go to animation, and we're going to react on a formula. Our formula is if GVGO is equal to close, let's animate forward, otherwise let's animate back. Now here's what's going to happen. If GVGO is equal to close, this is like us closing down everything. I want this animation to go forward. And this animation that I'm going to be bringing forward, the F, it's really going to be scaling this thing down to where it's small and you cannot see it. So let's apply that animation right now. So for our action, let's go to scale out. I'm going to set the duration to 5 and let's test this out. So anytime we press this button here, remember how we coded this button? If GVGO is not equal to close, we want to set it equal to close. Otherwise, we want to set it equal to open. Well, if I press this square right now, it's closed. And notice this thing animated away because I have it set to scale out and I have the formula set up. If GVGO is equal to close, we want to bring this animation forward. Now, the way this animation is moving forward is that I have it set to scale out. It's important to understand that right there. And then otherwise, we want to bring it back. We want to bring this money overlap group back if GVGO is not equal to close. Well, how can we test that? So again, we're set to close. If I touch this again, it'll open and now we have it back. And now if I start tapping, like there, I'm tapping money and it's not going anywhere. It's not going away because that's the way I have it set up to work right now. Now we're going to come back and alter this right here in a second. I tell you what, we'll go ahead and alter the code a little bit right now. What I also want to do is if we tap that money overlap group, I actually want that icon to go away because in part 2, we're going to have those other icons popping out like you saw at the beginning. So in this same code, we're going to do an OR. There's your little pipe. I think that's what they call it. So OR GVGO is equal to money. We want it to also scale out. We want it to go away. And the reason why, when we tap that money icon in part 2, we're going to bring up those other icons that are, I guess you could say, behind the money icon that we have just created right now. So checking that. And now it's gone away because this code says if GVGO is equal to close or money, we want it to scale out. Otherwise, we want it to come back. So notice it's equal to money. Now, if I press this, it's still going to stay gone because if GVGO is equal to close or money, I want this thing to scale out. That's exactly what's happening. Now, if I open this thing back up, it's back. All right. So with that applied, now let's take this entire money overlap group and let's copy and paste. All right. So I'm just going to do some rearranging real quick. And this one I've copied and pasted, I'm going to rename this. I can't remember what I had in the top right-hand corner a while ago. Picks what I had a while ago in the top right-hand corner. Again, you can do whatever you want right here. So let's take this pick overlap group. Let's go to its position and let's set it to top right. Now what this should do is move it right on over here. And let's go to our items inside of our icon. Now inside of my pick overlap group, it's the one we copied over. I want to come into my icon where I have the black circle and the font icon, and I want to change this to some type of pick font icon. So I'm going to pick that one right there. And now we need to adjust maybe the size a little bit. I'm going to make it a little bit smaller, and I'm going to take away that left padding because I don't think we need it right now. All right, let's go to touch and not this touch. See, be careful with the touch that you're applying. Remember, we applied that touch to the entire overlap group money. Now that I've copied that over and renamed it to pick, I'm gonna come to touch, toggle my global switch, and I'm gonna change this to pick. All right, backing out of that, let's go to animation. And same animation, different code. If GVGO is equal to close or if GVGO is equal to pick, I want this thing to scale out. But also, let's incorporate a delay. Remember back at the beginning, I had those animations, those little icons kind of delayed as they were popping out. Well, we have to be careful with this because this is going to be especially beneficial when we work on part 2 and we make these other icons pop out. So I'm going to come down to delay for this one. I don't have a delay on my money one. I'm going to have a delay on this one. So I'm going to check my little box by delay. And here's what our code's going to be. If GVGO is equal to open or GVGO is equal to close, we want to have a delay of 1. Basically, this is going to be like 1/10 of a second. Otherwise, if GVGO is equal to anything else, I don't want a delay. That is very important when we start animating these other icons out behind each group. Trust me, you'll see that in part 2. So there's our code there. We will have a delay of 1 when GVGO is equal to open or close. Basically, when we open or close all these icons, this little icon here, the pick icon, is going to be slightly delayed behind this one. If it's equal to anything else, it's going to be an instantaneous thing. That's what that 0 means right here. So if we're equal to any other value, our text global variable go, if it's equal to anything else other than open or close, the delay will be 0. All right, so now let's test all of this out. I'm going to close. Everything closed. Did you notice the slight delay there? You can make that 1 in our code down here. You can make that 1 a 2 or 3. I tell you what we're going to do, I'm going to get a little bit crazy. We're going to make the delay a little bit more. Let's go to 2. That way it'll be more obvious. So testing this out again, if I open, notice we do have a delay between those two. And if we close it, we're going to have a delay between them as well. Now, you're not going to see the benefits too much of, well, we can see it a little bit right now. If I click on this one, what's going to happen is that the money is going to instantly go away. Boom. Now you may say, oh, how do I get that back? The way we have the money animation coded, if I touch this one, which is going to change this word to pick, money is going to come back instantly, but pick goes away. This is how we can alternate back and forth between just these two. Well, you guessed it. Let's create 3 more icons. Let's change the coding for the animation, the touch, and let's also make sure we come in here and change the animation delay. Maybe make the next one a 4 and then the next one a 6. And then we're going to be pretty much done with part 1 of this tutorial. So I'm going to fast forward through this. I will slow down at certain spots to make sure you're seeing the codes, the little functions that I'm changing and the numbers and whatnot. So let's go ahead and get to it. So notice here I did change the touch of my new overlap group that I've called social. I've changed its touch to make that text global variable go equal to social. I'm going to change my icon now. So now I'm back inside of this new one here, going over to its animation. We're going to change our code in here to social. Let's also come down here to our delay and let's make this a 4. And let's give it a test. So we have the delay, boom, boom, boom. If we close it, we're going to have that same delay. If I open it back up, we see the delay. And now I can alternate between these. And now the reason why that delay, that code that we have with the 0, again, to make sure you understand this 0, that means we're going to have an instant animation if our text global variable go is not equal to open nor is it equal to close. We're going to have an instant scale out. And we want that because if I'm changing right now, our text global variable go is changing from the word, we got money, we now have social, we now have pick. I want these other scale outs to be instant there. But whenever I open or close, that's when I want the delay in my animation. I hope that makes sense. Let's continue on and create 2 more icons, changing the same stuff and also changing that delay number. To get a Google logo, I think I have to go to a different one, maybe like Font Awesome. And now I'm in my Google one. Notice I did position it in the bottom left, and I'm going to go over to its animation, and we're going to change our codes. Don't forget your delay. And now let's give it a test. See how we have delays? Our G needs to be recentered. And now let's create one more icon. Notice what I've been doing too is the one I just created, I've been copying and pasting that. That way I can remember the pattern in my delay codes. I went, what, 2, 4, 6. So when I copy this Google one and I change my delay code, it's going to become an 8. So I went ahead and opened it up so that way I can see this. I didn't do that in the last problem, but you can, or last part, but we can definitely do that here. So I got it in the bottom right. Go over to my animation, change the code. This is our games app launcher folder, or whatever you want to call it. And change our delay to 8. Remember that pattern, like I was saying, if you copy the last one you created. Change our touch. And let's come back into our icon overlap group, and let's change this to some type of game icon. Resize it. All right, so I think we're good to go. So I'm saving that. Let's go back to the home screen and let's have a look. Right now, everything is set to open. If we close, it should go boom, 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 boom. As you can see, that's what we have going on with our delay. If we open, we should see that same thing. Boom, 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 boom. Let's find out. So there's our delay working nicely. But remember, we don't want that delay to happen when we actually start going back and forth between these. And as you can see, as I'm switching on these, oh, look at that. That didn't work. So check this out. When I tap on this one, game, I want game to go away. I'm glad this happened because this is how you can test and make sure everything is working correctly. So I'm going to make sure I'm in my game overlap group. Let me go to animation. It's formula. Games. Okay, so fixing that. Now let's save it. Let's go back to the home screen and let's see if we're cooking with some grease now. So close, open, and let's find out. So now game is going away and we got everything coming back. So as I tap on pick goes away, other pieces are coming back, and y'all, this is what's freaking awesome about the text global variable. All of this stuff, now again, regardless of which one we have gone away, when we close this out, everything's going to animate, and then when I open it back up, it's as if that G or whatever you had closed out was never closed to begin with. Text global variable is taking care of all of this. And yeah, there you have it. That's part 1. Part 2, you know, when we click on one of these in part 2, we're going to have the other stuff pop out with other icons. We're going to have that X button. Maybe you have the idea of how to create this now. The X on each piece, like if I click on this one, you're going to have these other icons with an X. That X, you can just set it to automatically set it to equal back is what I had it set to equal. Basically, I don't want to set it back to open or close because that's going to affect your delay animations and stuff like that. Set it equal to a back or a reset or just something different than open or close. And again, that'll be covered in part 2. And then we'll also talk about those of you who are new with KLWP getting these apps to launch. We'll cover that in part 2 as well. And that's it for this video. I hope it helped.